Hey guys, we're back from the break, and after addressing very briefly the theoretical foundations of welfare states, talking about the typology, where to start from, what's the motivation, what's the origin, we're going to talk about different actors that are important for the fate of welfare states. I mentioned already in the previous video that trade unions are incredibly important for welfare states as they are nowadays. By the end of the day, the confirmation of welfare states is proved by literature, owes a great deal to the pressure put by trade unions into politics. By the end of the day, trade unions, as we mentioned in class, are political actors. You know already these two, UGT and Comisiones Obreras. These are the two largest trade unions in Spain. And trade unions, by the end of the day, by lobbying, by bargaining, and also by mobilizing, were able to strive to expand welfare states. I mean, actually, these generated what I mentioned in the previous video, also cleavages between insiders and, cleavages differences or between insiders and outsiders, and provisions only affecting, I mean, by the end of the day, benefits only affecting those who were, well, unionized or who had a stable job. And actually, these with the new model of society we have nowadays, obviously with the incorporation of women to the labor force actually decades ago, was hard for welfare states to adapt to these transformations. And actually, well, that also depending on how trade unions, are in each country. That's why also welfare states are different, and how they are involved administering welfare state programs, etc., etc. But let's go to Spain and to our case that we care about. Actually, UGT and Comisiones Obreras, as we've mentioned in class, but the other day they were clandestine up until we became a democracy. So up until 1978 or 1977, well, depending on how we consider it, Comisiones Obreras and UGT were no stakeholders whatsoever in this in the game, so to say, and they had to start bargaining from what we had during the dictatorship. There was a very basic provision system, assistential, basically, for what we were saying at the beginning, basic needs, survival of citizens. And obviously, this welfare state expanded during the 80s. We had to form basically to get all the foundations of labor legislation, also health and NHS, also education, etc., etc. So trade unions in Spain incredibly important. Right now, the dynamic of welfare states have changed. At the end of the class, we're going to be talking about what's the prospect of welfare state. But I can tell you already that all around the world, and Spain was a bit of an exception because we arrived late, but all around the globe, since the 80s, is not the expansion. We don't talk anymore about expansion of welfare state. We talk about retrenchment. And retrenchment, we are, by the end of the day, I mean, the globalized world is putting pressure into welfare states. We are not under the same, by the end of the day, population pyramid anymore. I mean, we have an aging population. We are competing to other markets that are dumping workers' rights. So it's more of a fight of trade unions to prevent retrenchment. And we mentioned in class already when we talked about trade unions per se, how they do it, and mobilizing is their key strategy. General strikes, the epitome of those mobilizations. So UGT and Comisiones Obreras, definitely important actors to understand Spanish welfare state. Political parties, and actually this is something very interesting that I've obviously, that if you go through I was going to say legislation. If you go through the literature, on the confirmation of welfare states, obviously there are some differences between left-wing and right-wing parties. But when you talk about, for example, the trade unions nowadays, and you ask them about both sides, differences are not that massive. I mean, it's by the end of the day, the pressure of globalization into the systems has more to do, or financial crisis, for example, is doing more almost than parties. But by the end of the day, obviously there are differences between left-wing and right-wing parties. As you know, in Spain, left-wing we can consider PSOE and Unidas Podemos. In the right-wing, Ciudadanos, PP, and Vox. Each of them with different. By the end of the day, understanding how welfare states should be, what they are meant to be, whether they are to be retrenched, whether they have to transform and focus on what is more efficient in providing services and providing benefits. So obviously political parties have the final say. They are the ones that are actually deciding on legislation and giving form to welfare states and actually deciding what is a priority and what is not. And I want to mention another actor, and actually that one is the European Union. European Union, we've talked in class how actually original was also a single market project, but the European Union over the last decades became a little bit more. And actually, European Union is criticized also because of this, because it's focused sometimes too much in the companies and in the markets, and not enough in the people and the social rights. However, in academia, we talk about what is called the European social model. There are some basic traits that European countries share, and actually the European Union held as inspiring value at least. And also, besides those values and that European social model, we have what a very, very basic social regulation at the European level that is not decided by member states, but is actually decided at the European level. And here we're talking about health and safety regulations. Most of these are related to work and to working conditions across Europe. And well, working conditions, there you see it, and equality between men and women, and also, any other inequality you can think of. Because actually, well, if you know about European Union legislation, I don't want to get deep into this, but by the end of the day, when we're talking about social policy at the European level, we're talking about open method of coordination. By the end of the day, this is pretty much saying anyone who wants to join, but there's no, this is not compulsory. This is not a compulsory policy, only if it affects other areas, for example, health and safety, working conditions, and equality. And last, we're going to talk about what people think about welfare states in Spain. Last in this video, there's going to be another one. If you actually ask people what they are most interested in which policy area do you think is more important for people, people in Spain actually identifies healthcare. Work regulation. Actually, work regulation is the priority. By the end of the day, you have to understand that this question was asked after the economic, we are actually coming out of an economic crisis and probably moving into another one. So employment regulation and employment benefits is 33% of people choose that. Then it comes health with 28%, and then will be education. So by the end of the day, these are the pillars actually of the Spanish welfare state. So pretty much what the public is saying that is important is by the end of the day what our welfare state pillars are. And the other question is quite interesting, and this one is actually asking health care is better managed if it's managed by the public administration or if it's managed by private companies. And actually, a large majority, 2/3 majority said that it's actually better managed. It's not even saying that if it should be public or private. It's actually asking who's managing healthcare better. Spanish people think that public administration is managing healthcare better than private companies would. So actually, you can see very clearly how healthcare is a priority in the Spanish society, and how that we have a public healthcare system is basic, and there's really no party that can go against it. So we're going to have another break. After the break, we're going to talk about specific policies. You can imagine which ones we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about healthcare. We're going to talk about pensions. We're going to talk about education. We're going to talk about labor market. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what's to come. So yeah, stay tuned. I'll see you after the break. See you in a minute.